Good morning, everyone. We are going to get started in just a second with Tony, the Hyacinth Macaw.
Was that tasty? You ready to get started?
Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to our Instagram Live. My name is Jake. Welcome to Take a Break with Jake. Today we're meeting my pal Tony, who's a beautiful Hyacinth Macaw. He's real pumped up to be here today. Yeah. So he'll be showing off some of his dance moves that he has taught us over the years. Like, I'm not a dancer, but Tony is. I've learned quite a bit from him over the years while I share some information about these beautiful birds with y'all. So Hyacinth macaws are the largest of the macaw species. From the tip of their beak to the tip of the tail, they range about 3 feet, so an entire yardstick, which is kind of impressive. And their wingspan is pretty similar, about 3 feet. So they are very large birds. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. Macaws are part of the parrot family, which means that they have big beaks that they use to crunch down on their food. They have zygodactyl feet, which means they have 2 toes in the front and 2 toes in the back, which Tony's showing you right now is how he holds onto the branches of trees or this beautiful perch that we have. But macaws are kind of a family within the family of parrots. There are about 350 species of parrots worldwide, and there are only about 19 species of macaw. And all the macaws live down in Central and South America, and they primarily live in the rainforest. Do you want to come over here? Hi, buddy. Hyacinth macaws are a little bit different, though. They don't prefer like deep rainforest habitats. They actually like more open woodlands, savannas, grasslands, areas like that, because of what they like to eat. Macaws like Tony love to eat really hard nuts and seeds, and you can see he basically has a built-in nutcracker right there on his face. He can use that beak to crush down on really, really hard nuts out in the woodlands and the savannas where they're found, and then he can eat them and extract the meat from the nut. Macaws are kind of cool because they actually have a bone in their tongue that they can use to manipulate nuts and get into them a lot easier. So they're very dexterous tongues, and they actually are pretty dry as well. Can we go back over there? Good job, buddy. So that they can grab all of the meat from those nuts, and they actually can eat some nuts that a lot of other species can't eat. But even though they have almost 300 pounds per square inch of crushing pressure in their jaws, which is why Kelsey and I are keeping our fingers back today. There are some kinds of nuts that I was reading, Hyacinth macaws can't even break into, so they actually wait until cattle and other ruminants eat them and digest like the outer layer, and then the macaws go through their feces and grab the nuts.
That's a really good strategy, but also not cute.
Right, super gross. It helps that macaws don't really have a great sense of smell. So it's like kind of just like wading through brown sludge. Ooh. Still gross, I'll say it. Needless to say, we don't feed Tony any cow poop nuts here at the zoo.
How kind of you.
Yeah, he gets only the finest foods that are fresh and clean. So we give him a variety of seeds, nuts, fruits, vegetables. I actually have his fruits and vegetables sitting over there because he doesn't eat those until after all the other stuff is gone. He's much like a lot of us. He has his preferred foods, and then he eats all of that first, and then he will deign to eat other things.
We were getting a pretty good view of his little tongue working in there.
I can try to give him that. There it is. And if you can tell, it's actually pretty black with some yellow on it.
Yeah.
And the yellow is actually his skin color, which actually is pretty cool. So if you look like right around the front of his beak, on the sides, obviously, and around his eyes, that's all his yellow skin that's showing up. Under all the feathers, he's a yellow bird.
Wow, I didn't know that, Jake.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I'll talk a little bit more about his feathers later, but he's a really pretty bird. Other species of parrots, especially macaw species, will eat things like rock and clay to help get the minerals that they need in their diet. I know. And then they also will eat those small rocks to fill their crop and help them break up their food. The crop is a pouch right in the throat region of many bird species, and they use that to kind of pre-digest their food. That helps break everything down before it goes fully into their digestive system. Here's another thing for you. Do you want a banana chip? We're busy sauntering, everyone.
Yep.
Excuse us for a minute. Look how handsome you are, Tony.
We love a good saunter in the morning,
I
Jake.
know, right? Do you want to take this? We're thinking about it. Oh, yes,
Yeah.
we'll take it. Good job, buddy. A lot of people know that parrots live a long time. Many sources say that Hyacinth Macaws can live 50 to 60 years in the wild.
Holy
and
moly.
even longer in human care. That's a very long time. 50 to 60, I can't, that's twice my age, that's twice your age.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Thanks for doing that math today.
I got you, girl. So they're not the best pet for most people. They're about as smart as a human toddler, and they're like way more destructive. And they need constant supervision throughout the day. Yeah. So not the best pet for most people, but definitely a cool bird to visit here at the zoo. And macaws in the wild have to deal with a lot of different threats like poaching, predation by a variety of different species, and then habitat loss. So their numbers in the wild aren't super great, and we can mention that a little more later. But everybody always wants to know who Tony is and what his deal is. So Tony's actually been here at the zoo for 21 years.
Wow.
And he's turning 25 in a couple months, actually.
So he's been here since the beginning.
Yes, 1999 is when he moved to the zoo, which is kind of insane. And he was actually a former pet. His owner surrendered him because they couldn't take care of him any longer. He weighs about 3 pounds, which is like a good size for a Hyacinth Macaw. He's like a full-bodied big boy. Let me give him something else to keep him occupied. Are you ready? You're such a good dancer.
I know, I keep like wanting to bounce up and down with him, Jake, and then I remember I have the camera in my hand. So unless you guys want to like jump up and down with me.
Right, probably not. This is him pulverizing a nut. He actually didn't eat really any of that. He doesn't really like pecans.
It's mostly on the floor.
Yeah, but he does like crunching them up, and that's worth it too. That's
Everybody
fun.
needs a hobby.
Exactly. I wish he would like crunch them and then leave the meat of it for me, but he's not good at sharing, are you? Tony is one of our ambassador animals here at the zoo, so if you've seen our Take a Break with Jake's previously with ambassador animals, you've heard the spiel before, but basically ambassador animals are animals that come out with us to different programs and presentations all around the zoo, and a lot of our animals actually travel off-site with us as well to help educate people about animals. So Tony is a Hyacinth Macaw, but he is not one of the 4 Hyacinth Macaws that you can see on exhibit when the zoo is open. Those kids live up there. Tony lives behind the scenes with us and then comes out for special presentations. That was really clumsy doing. This is giving us a really great look at him using those zygodactyl feet. I may help him out here. Do you want some help? Or can you handle it on your own? No, he's like, I'll take the light one, thank you. He was goofing off, Kelsey, and then he just took 1 too far on a step. You missed the perch. What was that about?
Oh man.
Oh my gosh, he looked shocked. He's like, what just happened?
I am shocked.
That was really funny, T.
You warned me earlier that he might fly at me, and I was like, this is it. This is where I'm ending.
That was like not it at all. He's just being goofy, and he just stepped right off the perch. What's going on with you, buddy? Do you want your banana? We'll take it. We'll see if you eat it. So what I was mentioning before Tony showed up, how klutzy he is if you came to the zoo, oh, he dropped his banana. Yeah, he said no thank you. That's okay. If you came to the zoo last year and saw our animal shows, Tony was actually one of the stars in the animal show, and he would come out on a platform, he'd like do his little saunter, he'd show off for a little bit, and then he was supposed to walk off stage. But our problem all the time was that Tony really loved attention and applause from our guests. And so many of you probably saw a show where Tony just like sat out there and like flirted with everyone instead of coming back, which ended up being even cuter than the original planned behavior. So he does a really good job of helping inspire guests to care a little bit more about parrots and other species here at the zoo. Yeah, you're funny, huh? Some of Tony's favorite things, obviously attention, we talked about that. He loves dancing. He loves hanging upside down too. I call him Batbird all the time because I'll be looking for him on the multiple perches that he has in his home, and I don't see him. And then I have to remember to look up because he's hanging from the ceiling of his enclosure, 8 feet in the air, just like dangling around. He just likes it. Who knows why? And he does like scratches. Right now he's in a pretty heightened sense of emotions. He's like very excited to be here. He hasn't gotten to see new people in a while, and he hasn't seen Kelsey in a hot minute.
It's true.
So he's like real pumped to be here. Now's not the time to offer scratches, but he does enjoy a good head scratch every now and then. He's a really fun guy. Oh, he also loves to make noises with his beak. Let's see, do you want to show that off today? We're gonna zoom around. This is how he walks around a lot of times. He puts his wings out like he's pretending to fly. It's really cute. Do you want to make noise on the table here? What do you think? We'll see if he'll do it for us. He usually likes to rub his beak along surfaces. I also think he likes the sound that his toes make. Is that so fun? Are you the cutest boy? Yes to both questions. You may be wondering why he's not like talking a lot. There he goes, right on cue. Tony and other Hyacinth Macaws are capable of mimicking humans, just like most parrot species, but they're not really well known for their mimicking. They're better at just like screaming or being really noisy. When Tony's in a kind of new situation like he is right now, he's generally pretty quiet, but when he gets really comfortable, he'll start screaming, and that's how they communicate out in the wild. They have to be really noisy to communicate with one another. Hi. With that, some dried apricot. Delicious. You're not going to rub your beak around and make noise, huh? That'd be too much to ask today, Kelsey.
It would be, actually.
All right, well, I have just a couple more things, and then we can start taking some folks' questions. So I mentioned earlier that macaws are vulnerable. I just like choked on that word. Vulnerable.
Sound it out, Jake.
Blame the mask. When in doubt, blame the mask. They're vulnerable out in the wild, which means that their population is threatened by a variety of different things. Obviously, natural predators are to be expected, and that's not really a thing that harms their population too much. But poaching, for sure, and habitat loss are two big factors that lead to the decline of the Hyacinth Macaw population in the wild. He's really funny. Hi, Tony. So,
do you want to come back?
Do you want to come down here? Just no, thank you. I'll stay up here.
Cool.
This is a good opportunity again to talk about like parrots as pets. If you do want a parrot as a companion animal, they can make really rewarding pets, but they take a lot of time, a lot of research, a lot of money. Hi, Yoni. He was trying to sneak up on you there, Kelsey.
You didn't do a good job sneaking. Maybe be a little quieter next time.
Right. So again, they're not the best pet for most people, but you certainly can visit parrots at the zoo, or if you do want a parrot as a pet, I would recommend strongly doing a lot of research first because they take a lot of time and money, and then making sure you get the right species for you. And also, make sure you're buying a bird that was born or hatched out in human care, because, like I mentioned, poaching is a big thing that affects wild populations of parrots all around the world. Do you want that? That's some kind of dried fruit. That was tasty, huh? Wow.
Yum.
We're so excited. So some of the ways that you can help parrot populations is buying shade-grown coffee, which means that farmers don't have to clear-cut rainforests or woodlands to make room for their coffee plants. Are you dancing? You can visit conservation-minded organizations like the National Zoo. As soon as we open, you can come back and visit us. We actually are able to spend a lot of money all around the world helping people and their specific conservation projects out. So we work with a variety of partners down in South America and Central America to help parrots like Hyacinth Macaws with reintroduction into the wild, with nest boxes, with breeding efforts, all different kinds of things. So definitely come visit us when we're open. I guess now is as good a time as any to talk about that, because I'm sure everybody's wondering when they can come visit their beloved National Zoo. And believe me, we want you here as soon as possible, but we're trying to do that as safely as possible. So we're following the mayor's 4-phase plan, and we're on phase 3 of that. So I think currently Nashville's, we're in phase 2
Correct, yes.
right now, right? But the zoo is in phase 3, so we're waiting for that. And then as soon as we're able to open after that, we will do so when it's safe for animals and guests and employees. So definitely keep checking back with us. But Kelsey, who's behind the camera today, our amazing social media manager, will let you know as soon as she knows that it's
I will
time to
scream
open.
it from the rooftops.
Yes.
Don't you worry.
We are missing everybody terribly. So is Tony. You're going to fall off again, buddy. Let's try to go back over here and sit down a little bit. All right, Kelsey, do we have any questions we want to cover from folks?
Yeah. I saw a good one. I'm going to try and scroll back up to the top. But Jake, This one is interesting from, I think, Tim. Does Tony talk or does he just sing?
Yeah, so I mentioned that a little bit earlier. Macaws can mimic words that humans say, but they're not super great at it. And Tony in particular doesn't really like imitating people too much. So he says a variety of different things. He says, "Hi, Tony." He says, "Tony's a good boy." He says, "Hello." "Where are you gonna go? You're gonna fall off of my hand." So he does say some words, but he's not really good at it. He's nothing like an African gray parrot, which are kind of the ones that are known for their talking. But he does like to make little tunes up for sure.
I think he has 3 greatest hits now.
Yeah.
Let's
There's dust coming up from that hazelnut that you just cracked.
Wow, great.
Yeah.
Let's see. A good question came in earlier. How do you decide which animals are ambassadors and which stay on exhibit?
That's a really good question. Ambassador animals typically are a lot more tractable than exhibit animals.
Definition, please.
Definition of tractable is like handleable, manageable. I wouldn't want like a very wild and ferocious creature to be an ambassador animal because that's not safe for me or the animal or the guests. So typically our ambassador animals we raise from a really young age so we can expose them to a variety of different stimuli from a young age so that this is like really easy for them. You're typically not going to see us taking an animal that lives on exhibit or was born on exhibit or at another zoo like that and then asking them to be an ambassador animal because that's a lot for them to try to take on.
Yeah.
We're gonna go for a little walk, Kelsey.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah.
I love a good walk.
He's just on a roll. Do you want to come to your card? Sometimes he likes playing on the card. Would you like to be there?
Jake, I know you mentioned this earlier, but could you say again how old Tony is?
Yeah, so Tony is 24 years old currently. Hyacinth Macaws are capable of living beyond 60 years of age, but that requires a lot of specialized care.
What you thinking, bud? You standing on one foot.
You're gonna get down to the table. That was like intentional.
Okay.
Yeah, it looked like it wasn't. It looked like a face plant.
It did look like a face
But
plant.
he made that decision. He wanted to do that.
Good for you, bud.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Jordan wants to know what their top predators are in the wild.
So typically their chicks are a lot more susceptible to predation. Things like wild cats, lizards, snakes, coati, opossum. Really many kinds of species will prey upon Hyacinth Macaw chicks because they're pretty helpless. The adults don't really have a ton of natural predators, but certainly if any kind of predator of other birds can get a hold of a hyacinth, they would definitely eat them.
Yep. What is their natural habitat, like temperature,
Pretty warm. They're pretty close to the equator. They live in Brazil, Paraguay, Bolivia.
Okay.
So they're in a pretty warm space, and they're cavity nesters. So they find big old trees, typically ones that like a toucan or some kind of woodpecker has hollowed out already, and then they nest within that. So it's pretty hot, it's pretty warm year round down there. And like I mentioned a little bit earlier, their preferred habitat is kind of like grasslands, savannas, woodlands, like around the edges of the woodland a lot of times, where they can kind of go forage for all the nuts from the different kinds of trees that they like to eat from. And there are some groups of hyacinth macaws in select parts of their range that only eat nuts from one kind of tree, or that makes up the majority of their diet, which is kind of crazy. Tony gets a very wide range of items here at the zoo. So we have parrot pellets, banana chips, dried fruit. He has fresh fruit, fresh veggies, nuts, seeds, you name it, we offer it to him.
That's a huge mix.
Yeah, but I mentioned a little bit earlier that he doesn't really like his fruits and vegetables, so I put those away already. He'll get those later today. He's cracking them that right now.
Oh.
Are you gonna do it, or are you just gonna hold on to it?
That's fine. You can hang on to it. Nope. Still. Oh, there we go.
So parrots are pretty cool. They're typically either left-footed or right-footed, just like we're often left-handed or right-handed. And so then they'll use their dominant hand to hold the food up to their mouth. And so people a lot of times get a kick out of seeing the parrots like biting their feet. Typically that's not actually what they're doing. What they're doing is holding food up to their mouth. it's a lot of times just too small food for us to see from a distance.
Let's see. Question, Jake. I don't know if you know the answer to this, and that's okay. We can look it up later. But do we breed macaws at the zoo?
We have attempted before, and I do believe that we still do have one breeding pair. So I think our total macaw count is 8. So we have 4 that live on exhibit. Tony lives with another Hyacinth Macaw behind the scenes as another ambassador animal. And then I think we still have a breeding pair that are also behind the scenes. Hyacinth Macaws are really hard to breed in human care, and they typically have 1 chick per clutch. Like every time they lay an egg, it's just 1 at a time. So it takes a long time to get them to a point where they want to breed. You don't even care about any of the treats, huh?
Allison wants to know, why is Tony blue?
So macaws and other parrot species come in a variety of different colors, really like rainbow colored. Think of like our rainbow lorikeets here at the zoo. Those are a member of the parrot family. So they're beautifully colored. So I don't think that there's any like scientific evidence as to, oh, somebody just walked by outside and he did not like them.
Oh, sad.
I don't even know who it was, but he got real angry and was like, I'm gonna go get them. Why are you crazy today? So anyway, I'm not sure that there's any scientific evidence why certain species are certain colors, but certainly with many species of animals, like if they all look the same, they can flock together and stay safe in numbers. The cool thing about the blue of a Hyacinth Macaw is this is actually a blue that's created by the tiny little structures that make up their individual feathers. So when he gets wet, his feathers appear very green or even brown.
Wow.
His natural color is derived solely from the way that those tiny little structures interlock with one another and the way our eyes perceive them when the light hits them. Unlike other species that have pigmented color, like things like flamingos, who get a lot of their pink color from the foods that they eat, that's different from the structural color of a macaw, which is kind of interesting.
Not all macaws are blue though, right?
Correct. Yeah. All of them are like different colors.
And do you know how many colors of macaws there are?
There are 19 species of macaw. Where are you gonna go now? And I've seen ones with red, white. Let's go through the rainbow. Red, yes. Orange. Yeah, there's a little bit of orange. Yellow for sure. Green for sure. Blue, obviously. Purple? Maybe not purple. I'll have to look into that.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe not purple.
But they seem to cover the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
You're very messy.
He is. I'm gonna have to sweep this whole floor.
Let's see. Does Tony fly?
He is fully capable of flight, but he chooses not to fly. He's like not big into that.
Interesting.
So a lot of times when we're walking him, you'll see him like spread his wings out and pretend like he's flying, but he's doing absolutely no work to get into the air. The couple times recently that he's flown, because he chooses not to fly a lot, his flight muscles are not really well developed. So he kind of just like crash lands on the floor, and you're like, that was a choice.
That was a choice.
Where are you going?
Charby wants to know, how high can Tony fly? Maybe,
a feather.
How exciting for you.
Huh.
How high can Tony fly, or how high can macaws fly?
I don't actually know that there's like a recorded, like, oh, a macaw was found at this altitude. Birds typically aren't like flying up. Like that's not, there's nothing there for them. You'll see some birds like vultures, condors, a lot of other migratory birds will like move like this. If this is the ground, they're gonna move like this and get up nice and high and then stay up high.
Sorry, I got distracted by how cute Tony was, so I missed your hand motions.
It's basically this and then this, right? But no birds are like, yeah, he says hi. No birds are like flying to see how high they can get. There's like nothing in that.
There's no motivation for that.
Exactly. So macaws, especially Hyacinth macaws, they actually feed on the ground a lot. So they're not trying to like fly high to move from place to place either. And they don't migrate. So they don't really have any reason to fly above the tree line, really. Interesting question. What do you think? Now you're just getting comfortable. We may never leave. Do you want to come up here?
Jake, I know we talk about this a lot when we talk about birds. But do macaws mate for life?
This is another one that's like pretty selectively monogamous. They can be super monogamous, but they also can be like, you didn't hold up your end of the bargain, peace out.
Bye.
Yeah.
Are Hyacinth Macaws loners, or do they do better with other parrots?
Almost every single parrot species, there are like 350 some, are flock-oriented animals, so they like to be with others. So Tony has another hyacinth that he's paired with here at the zoo that's like his buddy, and then he actually has 2 cockatoo friends too, along with a lot of humans. Tony's kind of fun too because he is like not a big fan of being friends with most people. He likes attention from people. He likes people to look at him, but he doesn't like too many people to get close to him. So there are about 4 of us here at the zoo that he's friends with, and then everybody else, including our guests, are like included in like the chew toy kind of region of friendship, where he just wants to bite you and see what reaction that elicits.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun.
Funny question. If Tony had to pick between you and Casey, why would he choose Casey?
That seems like a loaded question.
It does.
Tony is really kind of fun because when I started here at the zoo, he had 2 female friends that he was like really into. He didn't really like anybody else. And then one day he randomly chose that he wanted to work with me. And then Casey, one of our other keepers, came along, and his previous friends both left. So I was like the interim best friend.
I see, yeah.
Casey came, and then Tony became Casey's best friend. But macaws, like Tony, are kind of fickle, because if like his best friend isn't here, then I'm his best friend. But if she were to walk in the room, he'd be like, peace out, I'm going to Casey.
Yeah, gotta go.
Yeah, I have human friends like that too.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, I won't name them Casey.
Oh man. Waylon, age 6, wants to know, how many birds can talk?
Hi, Waylon. Most of the 350 species of parrots are capable of mimicking in some way or another, but there are far fewer who can like talk more like people kind of expect parrots to talk. And the ones that can like really mimic a lot of human words are pretty few. But the African gray parrot, the 2 species of African grays, are kind of the ones that are known to be really good talkers, and they can mimic any number of words or sounds. Tony is pretty limited to, he says hi, he says hello in a couple different ways, he says come here, because he likes,
I didn't know that.
Getting us over to him. I like to say how you do, or what you do, to him, and so he started saying that recently, which is really cute. Yeah, a lot of times he just mumbles, and he's like, that's like less mumbling, more yelly. But a lot of times you'll hear him just like mumbling or murmuring to himself. Yeah, that was a good Hi.
I could be a macaw.
Yeah.
Not really. Let's see. Someone wants to know, was that a malt ball in the mix of food?
It
What's
looks
the
like a malt
round?
ball. Yeah, so that's a macadamia nut, which are really hard nuts to crack. We'll see. Ooh, watch your phone there. He said I might chew on that. We'll see if he'll crack this for us. Not even 3 seconds.
Nope, that was too easy, bud.
So you can see, like, this is how thick they are, like very thick nuts, really tough to crack, but macaws can do it really easily. Tony really likes macadamia nuts. Those are really good for him. So like earlier in the year, Tony was a little under the weather, and he stopped like cracking nuts for himself. So then we had to crack the nuts for him, and I had to go like very old fashioned and just grab a rock outside and like bash it on a couple of nuts.
That's not old fashioned, that's Stone Age, dear.
That's like, yeah, way old fashioned. Yeah, because the nutcracker that we had was not going to cut it. So we had to go way back when.
Crystal wants to know, does he have toys in his enclosure?
Oh, yes. So that's one of the other like kind of misconceptions about parrots, is that like you just put them in a cage, you let them go, they're good to go, they're pretty, they talk, whatever. No. Like, they only really talk if you, like, teach them to talk, teach them to mimic, and reinforce them for mimicking. And then B, like, they are so destructive. So we have to give them toys throughout the day. We often give them new ones in the morning, and then sometimes we'll give them new ones in the afternoon, because they are so destructive and like to tear things up. And that's what they would be doing out in the wild. They'd be foraging for food all throughout the day, and that would keep them busy. Come here. Don't be crazy. So here at the zoo, we have to keep them busy and entertained as well. So we make sure that we give him lots of chew toys, lots of boxes to break up. He likes hanging toys in particular and wooden blocks that he can crush up and pulverize. So he gets lots of toys throughout the day.
Good question. Does he have to be hand fed? It's the mask. Piece by piece, or does he eat on his own?
When I do this, he says, I don't care. So he's really only taking food from me right now as like a favor to me because I'm offering,
to be nice.
Yeah, like because I'm putting it right in his mouth and being like, will you eat this? But like a lot of it, like he's probably gonna break this and drop it. Yeah. He doesn't eat a lot right now, so he's like, he gets all this food. He gets way more food than he actually needs. So yeah, he does feed himself when he's actually hungry. Right now, he's too wound up and too hyper to eat. So.
Yeah, I think that's the same true for us though, Jake. Like if someone handed me a slice of cake, I'd eat it.
Yes, cake, donuts, whatever, I'll take it, thank you.
This is a good question and relevant to this current moment. Jordan wants to know, do macaws have a special mating dance? And were you just dancing that?
No, that's not a mating dance. That's just a hyper dance. Macaws have different kinds of ways to communicate that they like want a mate. They will like display to one another, but they're not like elegant or crazy like say a flamingo or another species of bird that might like do like an intricate dance. Often courtship is like bringing each other food and hanging out with each other, and that's like the way to build a relationship for a macaw. You don't want to make any noises. No, nothing?
Nada, nothing.
We're silent. Can you say hi? He's been whispering hi a lot. Yeah. This is just like his mumbles.
Way cuter than mine. Let's see. Does Tony like to sit in the rain or use a bird bath, or what's his status there?
Maybe he enjoys a bath like once a month. Maybe a little bit more these days. But typically, like historically, he has not been a big fan of being bathed.
Oh my
Who's
gosh.
that? A friend.
I was like, who was it?
It was Shelly.
Oh.
He said hi.
Exciting.
Oh.
Does he get excited when he is doing his ambassador duties as opposed to staying inside, or?
Yeah, Tony is kind of fun because you'll definitely see some days where he's like, I'm good, thank you, I don't really need your attention right now, like I just want to hang out. But by and large, he really likes hanging out with his preferred trainers. Casey is his favorite person at the zoo these days, and then I'm one of his other favorites. So anytime we're around, he's like, oh, okay, like what are we gonna go do? But certainly like y'all may have seen us down on the path with him before, and he has like a shelf life. He's like, okay, I'm over this, like one too many people, too many people too close, and then he's ready to be done. And it's really easy to tell when he's excited about going to see people or done to see people. Right?
Sasha wants to know, do you have to avoid having him on your shoulder as a handler to keep the dynamic as you in control?
I would look up a little bit more of like some of the behavior specialists like Barbara Heidenreich or Hillary Hinkey over at Avian Behavior International. They've done a lot of work with macaws, especially, and parrots about like height dominance. I'm not a believer, and really neither are they. The reason I don't like him on my shoulder is because he's very loud, and also he has 300 pounds per square inch of crushing pressure in his jaws.
We don't want that near your ear.
Not by my ear. My face is my moneymaker, so like I'm not interested in that.
Also the glasses.
Yeah. I look at every interaction with Tony like he's my partner, and so I work with him on what he wants and what he needs, and then ask him for what I need and want as well. And that works pretty well.
Let's see. Kay wants to know, did the masks confuse him at all?
The first day I saw him with the mask on, he was like a little hesitant, but other than that, he hasn't cared. He's pretty easygoing. It's interesting because some of the animals that I would think like wouldn't care at all did care, and then animals like Tony, who I would like expect to care a little more, he didn't have any problem with me wearing a mask. Here.
I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, Jake, but someone wants to know, does he like other animals or just his people?
He will flock with our 2 ambassador cockatoos and our other Hyacinth Macaw, but he's not like into being groomed by them or grooming them. He's pretty much like, I like to be around you, but not on top of you. But he likes being out with his people, so he'll sit on my arm or Casey's arm for any number of hours throughout the day if we let him. Yeah.
Are there more parrots in the wild or in captivity?
I think for Hyacinth Macaws, the number is probably pretty similar in the wild and in human care. These birds have been poached for decades. I was reading about one poacher who had taken almost 400 chicks from the Hyacinth Macaw population in Brazil out maybe about 30 years ago, and only 4 of those survived to adulthood.
Wow.
So the exotic pet trade is a huge thing that has affected wild populations of parrots, and certainly like you want to be doing your research before you get a pet parrot. There are a lot of amazing private breeders and owners of parrots and a variety of other birds here in the United States. We're really fortunate to have a really flourishing aviculture population here in the US. So we have a lot of really great experts out there who can help you find the right bird for your family and make sure that you're set up to succeed. Because a lot of times a bird like this, if I got him at this point in my life, I would need to put him in my will still because he may outlive me.
Crazy.
You crazy. Hi.
Let's see. You may not know this, but this is about the macaws on exhibit.
Okay.
Do they not fly away by choice like Tony, or are they clipped or
They have
whatever?
their wings trimmed, so the keepers do that pretty regularly. But like I mentioned a little bit earlier, like parrots spend their entire day foraging for food. So if they have all the food that they need and they have lots of toys and other things to play with throughout the day, you don't want scratches right now. That's pretty clear communication.
That was clear communication.
I always do this before I scratch him. He's like, maybe. I'm not interested. So yeah, their wings are clipped, but they have everything that they need out there on exhibit, so they have no reason to like cruise around. Every once in a while, if it's super windy, one of them may take off in a gust, but then they typically just sit wherever they land and scream for their keepers to come pick them up and put them back on the island.
Like, oops, how did I get here?
Yeah, like, what am I doing here?
How did that happen?
Yeah.
Jake, we may have mentioned this a while ago, but what is their conservation status in the wild?
The IUCN, which is kind of the one that we've been going off of for all of these live videos, is the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. They list them as vulnerable, but the kind of population was last surveyed in 2016. So that's data that's 5 years old now, or 4 years old. So in the coming years, we may very well see them getting worse in population. Where are you trying to go, T? T, what are you doing?
Does Tony like music, Jake?
He will selectively enjoy music. He certainly like has certain times of the day that he's like more interested in listening to music. His day is kind of based on what we're doing in the building where he lives. So sometimes if it's nice outside, he can go outside and stay with the other parrots for like 6 to 8 hours a day. Other days when it's like rainy or gross outside, he stays inside. We typically clean for about 4 hours in the morning and then are out doing encounters or training or whatever. And so he's involved in some of that. But a lot of times when I've noticed him really responding to music and other stimuli is when he's either alone or he thinks he's alone. And then he really is like kind of entertaining himself through the music.
Which is like what we do. Like if we're in the car driving alone, we're more likely to sing at the top of our lungs.
Exactly. So like the videos that you have seen posted on the Zoo's Facebook page or Instagram page, Casey, his primary trainer, has taken those. And some of those she's taken like when she's in our reptile room, he thinks he's alone and she sneaks out to capture him doing that. Other times he's in a really fun mood and he does want to like show off for us. Right?
Let's see. Adri, I hope I'm saying your name right, wants to know, where are his ears?
Great question. They're behind his eyes, much like ours, but they're under a lot of feathers. I'm not going to show you those.
Like directly behind?
Pretty close behind. Yeah, they're not giant.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Paul wants to know, what does he like to do?
Paul. This is what he likes to do.
He's definitely a bouncy boy.
Yeah, he likes to bounce. He likes to crunch down on things. He likes to explore. Yeah, he likes to stay busy.
Yeah, and if you guys are just now tuning in, this is Tony, our Hyacinth Macaw. He's an ambassador animal that Jake works with. He's 24 years old. I'm trying to remember all of his details.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Jill. Jill wants to know, did it take a while for him to learn words and their meanings, or gestures and their meanings?
Typically when parrots are like learning to like speak or imitate you, they're not learning what that word means. Like Tony doesn't know that come here means come here. He knows that historically we've asked him to come here and he's gotten closer, or we've gotten closer, and so he associates those two things together. But sometimes he'll say come here and he's alone, and so he has no idea what that means. Same with hi and hello. Like we say hi and hello when we greet him in the morning. Sometimes I'll be out with him and he'll be on my hand for 45 minutes, and then he'll just turn at me and say hi. It's like, yeah, buddy, I'm here. So
been here.
They're very intelligent birds, but they're not. He's not going to learn like carrot and then automatically know like, oh, I want a carrot.
Right.
So it really just depends on how they're taught and what they're taught. A lot of times it's more association than it is like actually learning what words mean. Hi, Cuckoo.
Good question from, I think this is Barbara. I don't recognize your handle, but will we be doing shows when the zoo opens?
So what I've been told is not for a while. This pandemic is not something to be trifled with, and having 300 people packed like sardines in the amphitheater is not a great way to stay socially or physically distant. But we are trying to prepare some different kinds of encounters and ways that you can see all of your favorite ambassador animals in different ways around the zoo. So look for that information once that kind of gets finalized once we open. And then there are some ways that you can meet some of the animals, like our flamingos and our sloth and our bintroms and our leopards. You can meet those with the virtual backstage pass tours that Kelsey has posted about on all of our social media platforms. That information is also on the website.
Yep. If you go to naturalzoo.org/backstage, you can learn more about those virtual tours. Let's see. You said that macaws get a lot of toys to tear apart. Yeah. Do you use specific toys, or do we take donations?
Yeah, so I think a lot of folks who have parrots at home know that buying parrot toys is really expensive. It can cost like $20 for a nice big toy that he can destroy in 5 minutes. So we try to be a little more like fiscally responsible when we're making their toys. So often my coworkers and I will like cut down branches from trees that are safe for Tony and other birds to chew on. And we'll cut those up into little chunks and drill holes in those, and then stack them with twine or with a rod to put up in their homes. And then we also, our wonderful volunteer crew, we have about 9 volunteers who work with us in the behavioral husbandry department. They're really great at helping us collect boxes and plastic items and newspaper, all kinds of different things that we can use to make toys for the parrots. And the volunteers are also really great at making a lot of toys for the parrots because it takes a lot of time to keep them engaged. Fortunately, we're working kind of 2 separate schedules right now, so we have an A team and a B team here at the zoo. So because we're at the zoo for longer hours, that gives us a little more flexibility with making toys. So often we'll spend the last like 30 minutes of our days making a lot of enrichment items for the animals for the next day. Also, side note, I'm touching my mask and I'm well aware. I washed my hands thoroughly before coming here, so it's only really touched Tony. I'm only wearing this to keep Kelsey safe. I don't want to spread anything to you, my friend.
Thanks, pal. I am also wearing a mask in case anyone cares.
I do.
Thank you. Oh man, I think I'm gonna take 2 or 3 more questions, Jake. Okay. Someone wants to know if Tony has any offspring.
Not that I know of. He's been here at the zoo for about 21 years, and he came to us when he was like 3 years old. And that's pretty young for breeding, and he hasn't bred since he's been here. Tony, because he was like raised as a pet, he very much considers himself more of a person than a bird. So he would not be a really ideal animal to like put into a breeding situation.
Paul wants to know, does Tony bite? And yes.
Yeah, anything with the mouth can bite for sure. And I've mentioned a couple times, Tony and other macaws like him have close to 300 pounds per square inch of crushing pressure in their jaws. So they can break off like a broom handle, like a broomstick, like they can just crack that in half really easily. So your fingers, your flesh is like a really easy thing for him. He has never bitten me. He's gotten close a couple times, like if I've had to give him medication. He's never really learned how to take medication voluntarily, so you have to kind of just like squirt it in his mouth and hope that he doesn't drip it out. But he's kind of like lunged at the syringe at me before. The thing that he likes to do, if I give him the opportunity, is he'll like pull individual hairs on my arms, or like if I put him on my knee when I'm sitting down, he'll like yank a hair out. And I thought that it was
how rude.
I know. I thought it was accidental when he first did it to me several years ago. Turns out he knows what he's doing, because I watched him do it one time. He literally like yanked a hair out and then swung his head and looked right at my face. And that's when I knew that he was doing it on purpose to get that reaction.
Man, that is rude.
So smart. Oh, fluffy boy.
Chelsea says, why hasn't Tony bred? And Jake was telling me earlier that macaws, like a lot of birds in human care, are just really difficult to breed, right, Jake?
Yeah. Can you grab this? And not my finger. No, this is the other thing he really likes to do, is he'll like try to gum on your fingers with his beak. And that's like not a thing that I like to reinforce, because I don't want him playing with my fingers. He's usually really gentle, and he'll just kind of like grab them and like move them around, but I'm not into that. So that's what you're seeing there. Oh, this is what I was telling you.
It finally happened.
Yeah. That's all we're gonna get.
Jake was telling me earlier that Tony likes to rub his beak on things because of the noise it makes.
Kind of crazy. Hi, buddy. How you doing? So silent.
So weird.
You're so fun, Tony.
Okay, this is a really good question. We'll end on this one, Jake. Miss V, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I can't read your name. How do you know if he's mad? Valerie wants to know.
So macaws are really expressive, and once you learn like what their different body language looks like, it's really easy to tell. Right now he's pretty chill, but he's also like a little bit amped up still from like all the excitement of being in this room and getting all these treats. But generally if his feathers are all laying flat, he's in a relaxed state. And then if he were to get like angry or afraid of something, you see those feathers puff up really fast. And then typically before macaws bite, they give you a variety of signs, but the biggest one is bluff biting. So they open their beak and they like slam it on whatever is bothering them. And you'll see like once the zoo's back open, you can see our Hyacinth Macaws on exhibit. You watch them and you'll see them like bluff at each other constantly. And that's just like a way of communicating. The flamingos do a pretty similar thing too. They'll like beak at each other but not actually bite each other. Those are good ways of knowing. But after working with Tony for 5 years now, I know what he doesn't like and what he does like, and I avoid all the things he doesn't like as much as possible. Bubbles. Bubbles are like the big thing that he really hates.
Really?
Yeah, so anytime I want to take him down on the path, I have to run down and ask everyone to stop blowing bubbles before I bring him down, because for whatever reason, that is like a no-no.
You were very interestingly high maintenance, Tony.
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
Allison, we don't have an opening date yet, but we hope to be able to announce one very, very soon. So, not ignoring your question.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
I guess, Kelsey, now's a good time to mention our online gift shop, which is a great way for people to help us out and get cool merchandise during our time of being closed. So you can check out shop.naturalzoo.org for all of the wonderful things that the gift shop has in store. Right? Yeah. I think it's about time for me to take Tony back for his midday nap. He's going to go back now that he's full of treats and attention, and probably nap pretty solidly for a little bit. I did want to give a shout out to Casey, who's Tony's favorite friend, and one of my favorite friends as well, I have to admit. It's her birthday today. Happy golden birthday, Casey.
Happy birthday, Casey.
How cool. Everybody, thanks so much for joining us for Take a Break with Jake. We'll be back. What do we have coming up this week? There's a live stream tomorrow with Dr. Heather.
Yes. This is very exclusive information. Maybe I have announced it. I'm not really sure. I have a bad memory, y'all. Jake is nodding his head.
She does.
We are going to be introducing you guys to our caracal kittens tomorrow on Facebook Live with one of our veterinarians. So make sure you tune in for that. It's going to be so cute. I cannot wait.
So cute and fuzzy. That's at 11 a.m. tomorrow on Facebook. And then at 11 on Facebook on Thursday, Kelsey and I are going behind the scenes at our conservation trailer with one of our lead herpetology keepers to talk all things Hellbender. And I'm super pumped about that.
Me too.
Hellbenders are so cool. So check in for those later this week, and then you can see the replays later on Friday.
Yep, we'll post those replays for you guys on YouTube on Friday. So can't wait to talk to you guys later this week, and have a great rest of your day.